Hello everyone, this is Mr. Lawback. In this video, we are going to go over Alexander Hamilton's financial program, including his idea of the national bank. We will also talk about what opponents, led by Thomas Jefferson, said about this particular plan and the role of the government and the constitutionality of the national bank. We will conclude by going over the two views of government, which became known as Jeffersonians and Hamiltonians, after the two respective individuals. Let's start by talking about Alexander Hamilton. Not only was he a Broadway play star, but he was a New Yorker, was actually an immigrant from the Caribbean with his family when he was younger. He was a Revolutionary War hero. He served as an assistant to George Washington. He argued for a stronger central government at the Constitutional Convention, and he was very notably killed in a duel with Aaron Burr in 1804. Hamilton's financial program. One of the most pressing problems facing the Congress under the Articles of Confederation had been the government's financial difficulties. Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury, presented to Congress a plan for putting the U.S. finances on a stable foundation. Hamilton's plan included three main actions. Number one, pay off the national debt at face value and have the federal government assume the war debts of the states. Number two, protect the young nation's new and developing industries and collect adequate revenue at the same time by imposing high tariffs on imported goods. Number three, create a national bank for depositing government funds and printing banknotes that would provide the basis for a stable U.S. currency. Support for his program came chiefly from northern merchants who would gain directly from high tariffs and a stabilized currency. In 1791, Hamilton issued his Report on Manufacturers, and it was one of the most penetrating statements of the protectionist philosophy ever made. Hamilton urged the expanded use of protected tariffs as a means to protect the nation's young industry. It did not seem plausible to him that a nation of farmers could compete against the industrial might of Europe. He argued that the United States could only assure its political independence by maintaining economic independence. Hamilton's goal was to encourage a sense of national unity and support for a government that was financially reliable and responsible. He believed that such responsibility would improve business and commerce and would ultimately help the new nation. So he envisioned an industrial America, much like what Britain was at the time. Opponents of Hamilton's financial plan included the Anti-Federalists, who feared the states would lose power to the extent that the central government gained it. Thomas Jefferson led a faction of Southern Anti-Federalists who viewed Hamilton's program as benefiting only the rich at the expense of the indebted farmers. After political wrangling and bargaining, Congress finally adopted Hamilton's plan in slightly modified form. For example, the tariffs were not as high as Hamilton had wanted. So compromise. Jefferson and his supporters agreed to Hamilton's insistence that the U.S. government pay off the national debt at face value and assume payment of the war debts of the states. In return for Jefferson's support on this aspect of his plan, Hamilton agreed to Jefferson's idea for the nation's capital to be in the south along the Potomac River, an area that after Washington's death would be named Washington, D.C. Many at the time referred to it as Washington City. Ironically, President Washington was the only U.S. president to never live in the city that was his namesake. This agreement about the capital moving to Washington was orchestrated by James Madison. The National Bank. Jefferson argued that the Constitution did not give Congress the power to create a bank, but Hamilton took a broader view of the Constitution, arguing that the document's necessary and proper clause authorized Congress to do whatever was necessary to carry out its enumerated powers, or those that are listed in the Constitution. Washington supported Hamilton on the issue, and the proposed bank was voted into law. Although chartered by the federal government, the Bank of the United States was privately owned. As a major shareholder of the bank, the federal government could print paper currency and use federal deposits to stimulate business. The disagreement between Jefferson and Hamilton is one based upon which the American two-party system of government was built. Let's take a look at these two opposing views of government. The Jeffersonians. These were people that supported Thomas Jefferson and his view of the government. Jeffersonians distrusted strong central government. Their sympathies were with the debtors and agrarian or farming people, based on individuals who owned their own farms. They supported a broad distribution of wealth and disliked industrialism and organized finance. They believed people using representatives knew best how to govern themselves. In summary, Jeffersonians believed that the less power the federal government had, the better. They believed most of the government power should be held with the states. The Jeffersonians would eventually coalesce into the political party, the Democratic Republicans. Hamiltonians, or people that supported Hamilton's view. Hamiltonians supported a strong and active central government, which would encourage industry, commerce, and finance. Their sympathies were with creditors and business interests. They distrusted the people's ability to govern themselves and supported a powerful executive. In summary, Hamiltonians believed in a strong and active government which acted to benefit certain interests, especially those of business. So a key takeaway here is that the difference between Hamilton and Jefferson over the role of government led to the first two official political parties, the Federalist and the Democratic Republicans. At issue then and always is to what degree should government involvement take place in society.